gotta get near the mic there, man.
Oh, I got it on me, and I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be.
Right
there. That's where Mr. walks.
Okay. We're just waiting on Myra's getting it up and going so we can.
Right there, over there.
Is it record? We're good? Okay. Thank you guys for coming out to watch this. This is something we used to do prior to COVID. We did every year, and that's what we're hoping to get back to doing that. We've had a lot of people since then that have gotten power mobility and don't even realize there's a policy. There's a procedure you go through to get power mobility. So our intentions are to just make sure everybody is aware if you have it, if you are thinking about getting power mobility, or if you just want the information for somebody you want to pass it along to. So that's our intentions with this. It's just it's just information, and it's good to know kind of things. So I'm gonna go through. Of course, our policy is what we're going to go through first. So the purpose of our policy, Scotia understands the need for individuals to use a motorized vehicle for mobility, but maintains responsibility to ensure the safety of residents, visitors, and staff by ensuring that residents have motorized vehicles they can operate safely. So our policy. Number one, first you must see Resident Services Director, and that would be Myra, to go over the power mobility packet. That's what I just handed you guys. Resident Services Department will get approval from Executive Director, so Alan will sign off. Resident must have the physician provide an order to Occupational Therapy Department and a statement that the resident is mentally, visually, and physically able to operate the device, whether it be a scooter or wheelchair, safely. The resident must receive proper training and instructions particular to the vehicle from the Occupational Therapy Department at Scotia. Once the physician's order is received, we in therapy will contact you to get that scheduled, and then we'll go from there. When the training is passed or not, whatever information we gather from that. And when we do our evaluation, sometimes it's an evaluation and just a couple of treatments and we feel like you're doing great. Sometimes it's longer than that. Some people, it takes a little longer to grasp the safe use of those devices. But once we are finished with our training, we turn that back over to Myra and to Alan, and that's stuff that those papers will be stored from now until forever, as long as you're here with us. Also, about 2 weeks after therapy turns you over, and then at any time that it's deemed appropriate after that, there's a checkoff list that we go through that has things that Scotia looks at specifically. So after therapy says, okay, you're good to go with that, with the training. About 2 weeks later, Myra's going to come out and she's going to go through that checklist of what Scotia looks at specifically. And then, like I said, at any time after that there's a need for her to do that, she certainly can. And at any time they can refer back to therapy if there are issues that they notice or if other residents are coming to them with issues that they notice. So the things that they look at, now keep in mind, when we do the evaluation, we do a really thorough multiple page evaluation. This one page here is what Scotia is looking at. And that's driving down the hallway. Did the resident turn the key off when they stopped? Driving down the hallway, did the resident drive on the correct side of the hallway? Did the resident keep both feet on their floor pad on their device while the vehicle was in motion? Did residents travel slowly while approaching a congested area? That's a big one. Did the resident exceed 3.5 miles per hour speed? Did the resident safely demonstrate entering and exiting the elevators? This is one we spend a lot of time on in therapy because that's a big deal. Did the resident demonstrate extreme caution when backing their vehicle? Did the resident demonstrate safe movement when entering a door that opens inward and also a door that opens outward? So those are the things that Scotia's looking at specifically about 2 weeks after therapy's done. Therapy is going to have you do a lot more than just that. we're going to do a really thorough evaluation. Resident must operate the vehicle in a safe and courteous manner, including elevator courtesy. Only empty elevators should be entered by a resident on a power mobility vehicle. Allow walking residents to use the elevator first. The walking person always has the right of way. You always do it the other way around? Well, that's sweet of you, but truly, you guys are walking, they're riding. So you should be the ones, I mean, if you want to do it and you're being kind to do it that way, it's okay. But when they enter the elevator, we don't want anybody in there because typically they're having to turn around. So we let you guys go first and then we go later.
Go on and then I'll do it.
That's right. And then that's part of the training that we do when you're in the elevator is turning around, getting to the button and all of that so that you can do it on your own. Now, great, if somebody is kind enough to let you go and wait for you to go down and come back up, that's fine. Just make sure when you enter the elevator, nobody else is in there. The owner of the vehicle will bear total financial responsibility or liability for any and all damages to property and personal injury caused by the vehicle. This is what you guys were talking about right before we started. Residents are urged to carry liability insurance on the vehicle. And the reason for that is we have had incidents here where people were injured, unfortunately. Or we've had an incident even years ago where somebody tipped their wheelchair over going outside off of the curb. They were making a turn. One of the wheels got off of the sidewalk and it flipped them over. So it not just for others, but for you as well. Resident must assure that maintenance on the vehicle will be performed on a regular and as needed basis with the understanding that the facility maintenance department cannot be responsible for upkeep of your vehicle. Vehicle must have tires that do not create damage or marks on the floors or walls. Vehicle must not exceed speeds of 3.5 miles per hour, which is an average walking speed. Now, it's hard for us to tell what 3.5 miles an hour is, so we don't have any special device that does that. What I tell people, and we'll go over this a little more, is that if you're on your gauge, you have a turtle and you have a rabbit, you need to be no more than halfway between those two. If you're more than halfway between, you're going too fast. I can tell you that. For this area, you're going too fast. Vehicles must have a horn, and they all do. I've never seen one that didn't. The owner must permanently post his or her name and address on the power mobility vehicle. The one resident cannot lend his vehicle to another resident without approval by the executive director. The vehicle must be parked or stored so no exit hallways or aisles are blocked. Vehicles must be parked in resident apartment when the resident is in their apartment. Power mobility vehicles may not be kept or recharged in the hall outside a residence, but must be kept inside the residence. And this is one that we know has been an issue here, going up and down the hall. So this is something that we're really looking at right now, especially. And, you know, some people, especially down here, it seems that people have a little more room to be able to do that versus in assisted living where the rooms are a little smaller. So we're working through that right now, but you are supposed to have your device in your room with you, not in the hallway. Medical clearance may be requested any time by the executive director to determine safe operation of the vehicle. The executive director reserves the right to withdraw permission to use the vehicle if it does not meet safety standards or is not operated or maintained in a courteous or safe manner. When using the residential dining room, residents shall transfer from the motorized vehicle to one of the dining room chairs unless medically unable to make such a transfer, and the vehicle must be placed in a location designated by management. And you guys know, if you go to this main dining room, there is an area where vehicles can be stored and not be out amongst everybody. Power mobility safety checklist must be completed within a reasonable amount of time after receiving vehicle and on an as-needed basis. And that's the one that I read to you guys, the checklist. So, education. Residents are encouraged to attend the educational series offered by the therapy department. That's this. The series will be offered once a year and will cover the policy, which is what we just went over, maintenance of the device, safety issues, and the device. So maintenance of your power mobility. Before I go to the next one, who is responsible for maintaining your power mobility?
Me.
That's right.
What? For maintaining what?
The maintenance on your power chair. Who's responsible for that?
I am.
That's right. Ultimately, you are responsible for the maintenance of your device. The maintenance department here will not work on your chairs. They don't want that responsibility on them, because if they tear it up, we're liable for it. So there are companies that we may put you in contact with that should you need a professional maintenance service. There's not any locally, unfortunately, or not that I have found so far. The closest one I found comes out of Raleigh. And it was a company, and it's been a couple years since I talked to them, but they were willing to come down here and do just a routine, kind of check up on everybody's, kind of in the instance that we ever need them, we use them, kind of deal.
Are they gonna come, Amanda? I mean, will they do that?
They will. Like I said, it's been a couple years since I talked to them, but I can
That would
certainly.
be nice. I've had this
Mhm.
a year and a half now, and it's never been.
Yeah, I can certainly try to reach out to them and see if we can get something like that going. What we would need to do is probably get the group together who already has those and just make sure that, they know about these folks, and if we ever really need to use them for some maintenance things, that we would do that, so they wouldn't, kind of like exchange for their time. They wouldn't just be coming here from Raleigh, giving us free service and just expecting nothing in return. So to be proactive, though, you may, if you're purchasing your chairs from like Mabry's and places like that, you may ask them at that point, do you recommend somebody? Do you have somebody at your place? Mabry's used to have somebody. They do not have anybody now that comes out and does maintenance. But some of the companies do. Now, we also understand that a lot of you guys are buying yours from other people, borrowing those from some from even us down in therapy that have been donated to us. So you might not always have access to those people. So a qualified person should always carry out a scooter or power wheelchair servicing. Getting it wrong could lead to an accident. However, there are things that you can do on your own on a daily basis, weekly basis, to make sure your chair is being maintained. So batteries need to be checked before use. So of course you the ones that have them already, you have a gauge on there. It usually goes from green to red being almost dead or dead, and then green fully charged. So you want to make sure you're watching that, and that when it's dead, you're charging it at least 8 hours. When the battery is in use, monitor that it's not dropping too quickly, because that could indicate an issue. And of course, if that's noted, then we might need to reach out to one of these vendors that can provide some maintenance. Tires should be checked regularly to make sure they're clear of debris, that the tread is even on them, there's no bald spots, and they're not underinflated. General condition of the power chair should also be noted. So that's, you're not hearing any noise from it. You don't hear any rattling. Something seems loose that we may need to attend to. So other items, and these are some things that you can kind of keep in mind and you yourself can look at. So the joystick, make sure when it's in that neutral position, if you have a joystick, that it's not bent, it's not too far forward or backwards, or doesn't look like it's out of alignment. Inspect the controller harness, so the harness where you plug in your chair, make sure there's no frayed wires or anything loose there. Inspect your seat, your armrest, your footrest for loose hardware. Look for corrosion on any of your metal pieces. Check that the brakes are functioning properly at your lowest speed setting. And then check that the entire device stays clean. Make sure you're checking your wheels, especially the feet part, the wheels, and the bottom, the base of it typically tend to get kind of grimy over time. So you want to watch that you're keeping that free of debris, dust, food particles, things like that. It is recommended that you have a professional service performed 1 to 2 times a year, depending on the maintenance schedule for your particular device. Typically, you find that in the manual, and this allows us to keep them in good working order for a long time. And typically, these are the things that they're going to do when they look at that. So if those folks came and said, hey, we'll come out and we'll look at all these are the things that they're probably going to be looking at. That all moving parts are greased, the tires are checked for pressure and wear, the motor checked, the ampage on your battery, both cold and hot conditions, and then a charger tested.
Who tests that?
It would be whoever we find for maintenance of it. That would be who it is. So like I was talking about that company out of Raleigh, if they came, said they'd give us half a day and they'd come and check the things, these are the things that they would probably be checking for you, because that's what keeps your chair running and in good order. Ooh. Okay, so did I skip? I think I skipped. Uh-huh.
Who do you recommend as the best person to buy it?
So that varies. So one of what I typically tell people, and I think for you this is what we did. I typically tell people there's a website called spinlife.com. Now, I don't necessarily think you need to buy it from them, but when you start to research what you might want in a chair, they have everything. So you can look at all the models. I mean, you can put pretty much anything you can find there. So that's a good place to start. Mabry's, if it's something you want quickly and you're willing to spend the money, because theirs are typically more, I mean, you can get on Amazon and order a scooter, under $1,000. Your chairs with the joysticks typically are going to cost you more, but depends on kind of what your needs are. So, but Mabry's carries the ones with the joysticks. Typically, all the time, they have their, the model that you see a lot of the folks around here with. They kind of keep that as their floor model. It's about $2,500 right off the bat. And then, of course, as you add things to it and get the nicer things on it, that goes up. So Mabry's is one locally, but I've had people do them on Amazon. So I don't really have a suggested place that you buy them. I think you just, whatever is good for you. The one that we see a lot of, the joystick model that we see a lot of is a Titan, is what it's called. I think it's a drive model, but it's the Titan, and we see that one a lot, so we're familiar with that one. But that's, there's a variety here. There's no specific one that I would say is even better than the other. We've seen a lot of good ones and had a lot of people.
What's a joystick?
A joystick is this right here.
Yeah, that's a joystick. Yeah. What do you do with it?
That's how you go. That's what drives your. So
You don't have
Hers
one.
is a J600.
No, I don't have one, but I have 2 levels here, so I can go forward or I can go
Yours
backwards.
is a Jenny.
right. So if
You
you
don't have to have it.
you don't have to have it, and that's part of what we can help you do that. I see you there. I'm not forgetting you. So we can help you decide what's better. So the scooter is more like a drive shaft, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, the kind of the difference. But you have it's more like driving a car, in my opinion. Whereas this one is all controlled by that joystick. It will turn on a dime. It will
And show us.
You want me to
do a lap around.
If you get in the elevator,
Uh-huh.
you can turn right almost.
So
where you
it just
are.
turns on a dime, whereas the scooter, you have to put a little more effort into it. So that's the biggest difference in the two. But also, some people find it easier to learn to drive the ones that are like a car versus these. So it just really depends on what your needs are at the time that you're looking to get a scooter or a wheelchair.
She's backing up perfect.
She is. She did great.
That's got a lot of practice.
Now for
What? She said spend, SPENDLIFE.com.
spin, SPIN, spin,
Oh, spin,
spin, SPIN, life.com.
life,
Life,
LIFE.
mm-hmm,
All right, thank you.
.com. You're very welcome. And like I said, it gives you a lot of options. You can choose different things, but you're going to see a lot of different options on there. You don't necessarily, they're probably on the pricier side through them, but you can at least get a concept of what you want and then start looking elsewhere to find pricing. Mhm. Ms. Dunsford, you got yours off of Amazon, didn't you?
No, we got it through the company.
Okay.
My brother-in-law has one like this, but it's an older one.
Uh-huh.
And I sat in it and I said to my son, that's what I want.
Uh-huh.
Because the other one I had four wheels and it had my knees up.
Right. That's what I'm thinking about, the first one. So
Yeah.
she ended up with a different one. I think we have a lady on in Heather Glen that got hers off of Amazon, and it's perfect. It's really similar to Miss Dunsford. She's not had any trouble with it, and she likes the way it drives. So
Had they rather we pop these when we eat, or can we eat, just put it under the table, which is the way they prefer it.
if you can get out of that chair and get into the dining room chair, that's going to be the preferred. But
I can't do that, but I prefer driving under it.
some
That's
people,
why I'm asking the question.
yeah, it's we prefer people to sit in the dining room chairs, but we also recognize that some people have a hard time doing that. So if it's because you're having a hard time doing it, then by all means drive your chair. But we would prefer you to be in one of those chairs and let them take that chair out of the way. Okay, so some power mobility etiquette, and we've talked a little bit about some of these. The use of power mobility is a serious responsibility and requires special precautions to protect your safety and the safety of the others around you, as well as the property around you. So, the walking person always has the right of way. When approaching a group or an individual, stop your scooter or power chair at a safe distance until the way is clear.
But
So-
the walking person always gives you the right of way.
A lot of times they do, because just like you guys said, they thought that's what they were supposed to do. So a lot of times they do, and that's okay. You just want to be mindful that they're doing that, and they're not going to all of a sudden walk out when you think they're stopping. Is the big thing, because a lot of, everybody around here is friendly, so they're going to always give you that extra. You just have to keep in mind when you're in a chair that the folks around here are 80 and 90 years old. They don't move like they did when they were 20. So if you make a right, so if you make a sudden move and they don't realize it, and then they make a sudden move, it could cause a collision. So
The
you,
reason I'm asking so much is I've just gotten it, so.
That's okay. You ask all the questions you want to. So use extreme caution in backing your scooter or power chair to be certain that no one is nearby and that you do not hit walls or furnishings. Remember that a run-in with a walking person can cause serious bodily injury for which you can be liable. And I put up there in yellow, and I say this to everybody. We highly recommend that you do not back up unless you have no other option. Yeah, so for like in your chair, you saw how fast that turns. It's just as easy to turn. In a scooter, that's a little bit more difficult. You don't get to turn quite as on a dime as that chair does. So you might find more people backing up in a scooter, but you're going to increase your risk of hitting somebody when you have to back up. I can tell you that. And even though you may think you're paying attention, I just witnessed probably about a month ago, right outside of the dining room, somebody in a power chair, and there was a lady behind them, and she was so close to that chair that when that person started backing up, thankfully she realized she was there, but she was so close. Had she not realized it at the instant she did, it would have ran her over. And she had no concept that the person was even backing up. So she just stood there. So that's why we say you don't want to, unless you absolutely have to, you do not want to be backing up.
And you can get, like my company has all the extras,
Right.
and
So,
so I got the backup mirror,
uh-huh.
but I don't always see them like I need to see them with these things.
Right. That's true. So you still blow your horn.
Constantly doing this.
If you're going to back up, make sure you're blowing your horn too. That's get somebody's attention, because you're going to blow the horn so that they know you're getting ready to move.
You know, let me ask you something. Long past as this lady's moving, she would decide me on that, her apartment when I first came.
Mhm.
And she would fly out backwards and forwards. She just
Talking a mile a
How
minute.
are they supposed to back out? I mean, how are they supposed to get out of the room? Forward or backwards?
Out of their rooms, they should be coming out forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not a room in this building I can think of.
My witness, which I'm not now. I would have been hurt, I know.
Yes, there's not a room in this building that's not big enough for us to go in and turn around and come back out in a room.
Elevator is really hard.
An elevator, that's the elevator's your biggest issue here, because like I said,
Trying to turn around
it's-
in an elevator.
it can be tricky in an elevator. That's the biggest one, but it is very scary to see somebody backing out of an elevator, because you got people that could be on both sides. So you be very cautious with doing that. If both you and the walk-in passengers are waiting on the elevator, allow the walk-in passengers to use the elevator first, and we talked a little bit about that, unless they're waiting on you and you know you are the only one in the elevator. They're letting you go because they're being nice and they want to wait. Be very careful when turning corners and give the right of way to others who are walking. That's another big one, especially coming down now that the clinic is down towards Skilled. I see people all the time come flying around that corner. So make sure you're being careful. You go out in the middle of don't cut the corner real tight. Go out and come around, but slow yourself down so that you
And
can.
they got the mirror thing.
The mirrors.
In the corner.
Mm-hmm.
If you look up there, you can see whether somebody's coming or not.
Right.
She's missing a bunch of people that need to be here.
I know, but that, unfortunately, yes, you're right. Operate your scooter or power chair slowly so you can stop quickly and safely when needed in a crisis. Controlling your wheelchair and scooter. For indoor travel, it's important to turn the power control to half speed in order to maintain control and allow for sufficient braking distance. It's also important to realize that there is a delay in most chairs. When you take your hand off of the accelerator, there's going to be a little bit of a delay, so it's not going to just stop on the dime. So make sure you familiarize yourself with that. And that's something we try to do when we're doing our training. But if you can test that in your own room, even some of you that have rooms large enough to start taking off, and then just let your hands off the brake and see how long it's taking you to stop. Or off the accelerator, rather. You may need to adjust your speed to be able to safely control your chair in reverse and for turning corners, what we just talked about there. So some safety tips. Always turn the key to the off position when stopped or when getting on and off your chair. Anybody tell me why we do that? Because it can be bumped. Even
Mine knocked me over the first.
it did. So
I
you.
got up and it was on, and I was in front of it. Knocked me right
Gotta
over.
shut them off.
That's a perfect experience right there of why we say that. We've had somebody over in Skilled that the resident stopped, she forgot to cut it off, and another resident bent down to hug her, and she bumped that chair, and it ran over her foot. I mean, you don't think about those things in the moment, but that's a really important thing. When you're stopped, turn it off, always. just so you or anybody else don't bump it. Keep your feet on the floor pad while in motion. Lock the set assembly before moving. Go straight up and down the ramps or curves, never at an angle. So what I was saying about the sidewalk, the same is for a curb or a ramp. Whenever you know how the handicap ramps are in our parking lot, it would be really easy to just start going up it at an angle. But you want to make sure you're going head on, and then when you get to the top, you can turn it and go how you need to. But don't go at an angle because you're going to risk tilting over. Use caution and travel slowly in congested areas. Use caution when riding your chair off the sidewalk or on rough or uneven surfaces. And I would even go as far as saying, don't go off of the sidewalk unless you absolutely need to. We shouldn't be seeing folks riding in the grass and all over the, all these other uneven surfaces, because that's putting you at risk. Oop. Okay, so never drive your motorized wheelchair with the seat higher than necessary. Drive your motorized wheelchair diagonally across inclines or make sharp turns at full throttle. Drive your chair with underinflated tires. Stop on an incline to rest or get off the chair, as your chair may roll or tip. Drive on inclines greater than the rating for your chair model, and in the manuals for all the chairs, it will have that information. Never allow the chair control to become wet. Wash the chair with a hose or drive through puddles. And then use portable phones or cell phones around a chair while the power is on. So again, that's another area that we see folks. When you take a phone call, cut your chair off. Don't keep your chair on and keep trying to go around and talking on the phone. That you're distracted, you're more likely to get in an accident at that point. So this is some fire safety things we used to include. I almost left them off, but I decided I'm gonna go ahead and go forward with them, just so you guys know. Power wheelchairs and scooters should be electronically powered and have these characteristics for maximum safety. So use sealed gel type rechargeable batteries, which all of yours do. Most of the batteries are encased in the components under your chair. Use no spark electronically controlled battery charger with safety cables and plugs, which all of the chairs around here have. Use wheelchair motors that are AC brushless induction motors. Avoid all brush type motors, whether AC or DC power, because the brushes spark. The wheelchair controller should not have on-off switches unless they are sealed and fireproof. It should have continuously variable electronic speed and power controls, which you guys do have. And every wheelchair and scooter in the building should have fire retardant cushions and upholstery. So, like you were asking earlier about the different types. So your wheelchair, which is like Miss Doolin's here, so you've got a joystick that controls that. You got a foot plate. The arms on those, the arms can go up and down, so they're adjustable. The seat can go up and down typically. It's adjustable to fit.
Moving that so they can see.
Yeah, it should be adjustable to fit the person, as close as we can get it to anyway. You've got the two wheels on the front, the two wheels on the back. And then your battery is stored kind of in those components underneath that. Most of those also have a place on the back. We do have some that like to put a bag on the side to put their things in. And there's a bag in the back of that seat. Your scooter is a little bit different. So you see, it's more like driving the car. You have a drive shaft there. Both of them have the horn. This one is controlled by just little knobs that accelerate. You go forward and backwards with those knobs versus the joystick. Sometimes it depends on which one you get. Some of them do have the pouch on the back, so you have a little storage space. Batteries underneath and that little black component. And that's pretty common with, I think, all the scooters I've seen. That's pretty much where the batteries are. So one of the things you have to watch for with a scooter is like Ms. Dunster was saying, the first one she got, there was little room for your feet in between the battery and the front of the scooter. So you have to be mindful of that when you're looking at those two, the fit of those. So if they're too close back, of course, if you have knee trouble, you're going to have some issues there. Yeah. This one has the 4 wheels. You can get them with 3 wheels or 4 wheels. Of course, your 4 wheels are going to be more sturdy and not as easily to turn as your 3 wheels. But your 3, we've not had any problems with either. I've got several with 3 wheels, and they like them just as good. So that's your basic differences in those. And again, you know, for somebody who has good use of both hands and can maneuver can learn to maneuver a scooter might be the better option. For somebody who might not have that much, might not want to do all of that, and might just have use of one hand, a joystick might be a better option for you. Or if you feel like it might be easier for you to do that, or you need it to go in tight spaces, and that one turns on a dime, it goes in tight spaces fairly easily. Also, the other thing about those, and you guys know, most of our doors around here are, you have the push button, especially going in and out of the facility. Some of them do not, particularly the door between Independent and Heather Glen upstairs. That door can be kind of hard to manage. So with a scooter, it's a little harder. It's a little more difficult to manage that. You have to kind of get in there at an angle, versus when you're in a chair like this, you can get a little closer to it to manage the door. So that's another thing you have to look at too. How much reach do you have to be able to manage doors if you need to manage a door? And that's all I have, unless you guys have other questions or want to say something good for the group.
Well, I tell you, they're a godsend.
They are, absolutely.
I'm learning how to use them.
Well, I think you're doing well. You've demonstrated out here, and I haven't seen anything that I would say you did wrong. So you're doing well. And I think the big thing, that the things that I see around here, and I kind of mentioned these throughout, is folks going too fast, entirely too
I
fast.
did get on the elevator with several people in there because they said, come on, so I should not do that.
You should not. You should.
Say, "Go on,
Let
I'll
the.
go on that."
That's right. Right. Or, yeah, that's the safest thing to do. Or you get on first, you get turned around, and you cut it off. And then if they feel comfortable getting off. But when you get to the bottom, they need to get off first. Let them get off and
Get me out.
let them get off and get out of the way, and then you go.
Yeah, that's easier, but I've never had a problem getting on an elevator with other people. But I usually am the first one off. They're the first one off. And then
you go.
Unless they tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they'll say, you go first, and we'll follow you.
That's right. So.
The door might close on you when you come.
And that's true. So hopefully, one of those nice people are going to make sure that door doesn't close on you before you get out.
Somebody usually holds it when I go across.
That's what I was going to say. Most of the time, that's what I see happening too. People are holding it so that you don't get stuck on there.
Yeah.
Of course, if you do, you just hit the button that, opens the door back up if you need to.
If you can reach the button.
If you can reach the button, yep. That's,
It is bad.
yep.
Yeah, another reason that we wanted to have this too is I found out there was a lot of things that resident service is supposed to be doing that I didn't know I was supposed to do. So that's when they came to me and said, well, Myra, where are you, like with Miss Dunsford, where's her checklist? Well, I didn't know Miss Dunsford had to have a checklist.
I
So-
have a checklist. I think Cheyenne did it when she was training me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you'll have that checklist, but then there's also one that I have to do for our records on resident services and
Well,
saying,
now that we haven't done.
seeing that when you shook your head a while ago, I thought, yeah, that's true, because we haven't done that. So,
I
you,
haven't been, I need to come see you.
yeah, well, and usually, that's why we wanted to go over the policies and let everybody know that, because there's like some people that came to Amanda, I had no idea they were getting a chair. And we're supposed to know that to start with, so we could give you the package and tell you everything to do. So that's why we're trying to get everything back in order, because poor Amanda had all these people, and I said, well, I didn't know, and so.
Right, it's, the policy's kind of, especially since COVID, has kind of gone to the wayside. So we're trying to get
Yeah.
back on track with that and make sure we're doing it right. We have the paperwork, because we don't want any accidents happen, and we certainly don't want to be liable for
Yeah.
accidents happening. So
And
we want
I-
to make sure we're.
Next time you do this, you better have a sign that says, you have to come.
Well, funny enough, used to it was required. Before, we required it once a year. We did record this, so
We
it
did,
is
so everybody
recording,
could
so
see
that
it.
the folks that didn't make it could get here, because you're right, there are some folks that we need here, and we'll be reaching out too, because going forward, the folks that haven't been through training with us are gonna have to go through training with us.
Yeah.
And then also Myra is doing her checklist, so everybody who we know that has a power mobility device is gonna hear from us in the next little bit. So we're gonna reach out to them regardless if they wanna be here or if they didn't, or just couldn't make it or whatever. They're gonna hear from us.
So you go to jail.
Yeah, so Amanda, she sent me the list of everybody that she's done, the chairs with. And so now I'm going back and saying, okay, do I have the paperwork? Because we have to have the paperwork because Alan's the one that came. He said, okay, I need all your paper to take to this meeting. And I said, what paper? I had no idea, and he said, Myra, you wasn't told you had to do that? No, sure didn't. So that's why we started getting back together. So there'll be, like Miss Doolin and Miss Dunsford, I will come to you and say, hey, we need to go over this and just get everything up to date.
I need to come see you.
That'll be fine, yeah. 'cause
Well,
I
and
did-
she'll get in touch with
Yeah.
you, but what let me see, is that checklist in here?
There's a checklist in there and where you have to sign off.
These are the things she's gonna be looking at. So that checklist in there that I read off,
And I need to come and get her to give me this test.
well, she'll get with you. Do you want her to come to you? Do you want?
Yeah, I'll call you. We'll get together. And so, because I'm going to go down the list, and I do know we have a few that I don't have a record or Amanda doesn't have a record. And if they say, well, we went to the training, you probably did, but you're going to have to do it again, so we'll have a record of it.
Right, and
So-
we've changed our system for Scotia, and our therapy system has changed in the last couple of years. So if I'm trying to look back to see, in our old system, I can still see some of the things. So I'm trying to look back to see who we have record really did go through it and who didn't. I've been here 6 years, so some of them I know have not gone through it.
Have not gone. So that's stuff we're checking on. And the backing up thing, Ms. Stumford, I know a lot of people think, backing up's okay, but that's one that's where most of our accidents happen here, where somebody's backing up. Because I can be turning this way, not seeing you, and not hearing your horn because I have hearing aids and I can't hear good. And you can't turn all the way around and you can't see me, and we just collide. So that's, we want to try, possibly at all, not to back up. That causes the most problems. So that's the main thing.
Well, I guess I could go forward.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
anytime you can go forward, always choose forward. Anytime you have
That's the
the
best
option.
option. Because
That's
you can
good.
see way more, a whole lot more.
Yeah, well, or as Owen said, ask somebody to help.
Yes, that'd be good if you can't
Ask somebody
see.
to look out. That's a good, especially.
I've done that many times, is there anybody behind me?
Behind me.
Uh-huh. Yep, and you can say that, even if nobody is there, you can always ask it just to make sure. Hey, just
Yeah.
making sure nobody's behind me.
And like I said, sometimes I can see them with these,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I can't.
Oh, no,
Right.
in our vehicles, our vehicles
That's right.
now,
You might have a blind
you
spot
have, we all
there.
have blind spots, and that's like a vehicle. That's considered a vehicle.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you see anybody, you let them know. Myra's gonna be contacting you if you've not been through that training. So don't get upset. So just get the word out. We're gonna put this on Care Merge also, so people can see the policy also. It's gonna be on there. And if anybody wants a copy, just tell them to come to me and I'll give them a copy. Anybody that may be interested in having one.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Amanda did a great job. She just took over.
Well,
So she did awesome.
well, thank you guys for
Thank you,
coming,
Amanda.
like I said, oh, absolutely.
I needed this. I have to watch all
Mhm.